All righty, we are cool. So, Jason, my man, welcome to Real Estate is Local. Thank you so much. I know you're super busy year end. I really appreciate you taking some time, man, to hop on the podcast with me. So, really what I'd love, man, is just to jump right into it. I We met at EXPCon, hit it off. You're a Staten Island guy. I'm a Northern New York guy. Break down for everybody that's watching, kind of your background, your experience, and what you love about New York, man, all the good stuff.
All right. So, um, born and raised in New York, grew up in Brooklyn, lived on Staten Island since I would say 1999. Been here 24 years, going on 25, which is pretty crazy. It literally happened in a blink of an eye, besides the point. Born and raised in New York bred boy. The city that never sleeps, always going 24/7, 365. Hustler, grinder, don't know when to give up. Don't like accepting no as an answer. Been in sales over 25 years. Entrepreneurship within the realm of sales. I feel like sales relates to everything. And if you have sales experience and you have some strong talents, you could pretty much utilize it in any market. That's really it, dude. Married,
Nice.
kid, 2.5 years old, taking me through the ringer, but that's about it.
Yeah, payback, right? A little karma.
Yeah, literally, she's my mini me, and it's funny because in the back of my mind, I'm always relating everything to a sales process, right?
Of course. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and like it's when I have conversations with her, we have adult conversations, and it's like I'm negotiating with myself. And I'm like, I can't win this battle. I just have to give up. And there's times where she'll comment back after I say something, and I just bite my lip and I walk away because I'm like, that's exactly what I would say. I can't
So you're one of those dads that like keeps it firm and then walks in the other room and starts laughing, is what you're telling me?
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it, man. Well, to kind of break that down, right? So hasn't always been real estate, right? Always been sales, but like break that down, break down the
All
path
right.
that
So
led you.
to touch on what you said, it hasn't always been real estate. It's been sales. I've been put it like this: in school, I was hustling, selling football jerseys on the side, making a couple of quick bucks, right? But then from there, it went into a couple of handyman jobs like plumbing, electrical work, just like side gigs, like just trying to, keep myself busy. Apprentice for a plumber, basically going into plumbing, going to school, working on the weekends, just, not wanting to be the product of, let's call it society, the way it's done, right? And I'm going to get backlash on this, but that's perfectly fine because you know what? Sometimes a reality conversation needs to be had to wake a few people up, and that's cool. But I was not always the person that wanted to follow the rules and stay in the box. I was the person to break the rules and get out of the box because that's where it felt more comfortable for me, is when there was when there was pressure and there was tension and there was all that chaos. I felt more comfortable in the chaos than I did in the calm. But so before real estate, it was auto sales. And auto sales, I worked for a luxury brand for a very long time. I dedicated a lot of my time. I learned a lot of experience from that industry. I ran a couple of teams over the years. I worked and ran a couple of dealerships over time. And you know what? I found out that sales, it's helping people, right? So sales, yeah, we get into the back side of it where it's the process, the questions, and all that stuff. But ultimately, what it came down to is serving and helping people. Because the way I looked at it in my mind is, if I can make this experience better than your last experience, I know I've done my job the right way. And that puts a smile on my face. So long
Yeah.
story short, I was in luxury auto sales for a long time. I was one of the top 2 performing salespeople at a certain store. And then what happened is on the tail end of that, and we could bring this into, I don't want to, 2020, 2019, where I saw things were changing. And I said, you know what? One of my mottos is you only live once. So why not give it a quick shift? I was always surrounded by the 2 words real estate, whether it was buying, selling, investing, working on,
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
permits, contractors, the whole nine, like that whole area.
Right.
And then it's, you know how sometimes success leaves clues, right? So every time I would sit down with somebody in my luxury auto sales area and they were buying the top 1% of that brand, it always had to do with broker,
Yep.
agent,
Yep.
investor, rental income, cash flow, all that stuff. So every time it was like a subliminal message. So I said, you know what? I started looking deeper and deeper into it. And throughout my life, I've known people in the real estate world and I've known agents and brokers. And I was like, no, 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 no. I'm good with auto sales. And then I'm like, hold on a second. There's more for me than just auto sales, because the way I saw it is auto sales is an instant gratification. Like, you come in, you buy a car, you sit down, you negotiate with the salespeople. If you're a good
Right.
salesman, you build a relationship, you don't focus on the transaction, and the money becomes the byproduct of that. So as I'm going through this, as I'm getting older, I'm like, hold on a second. There's more to what sales is than just auto sales. So I started diving deeper into that aspect. And then I started looking at incomes and I started looking at potentials and I started diving into the analysis of it all with schedules and business owners and all that stuff. And I said, you know what? The signs are leading me to real estate for a reason. And one of the main reasons why I got into real estate is because of the simple fact is I like to serve, meaning that, yeah, a lot of people in the world think that real estate is just a transactional based business, which in lieu it is, right? But
Right.
within those transactions, you're establishing a relationship, and the relationship is going to be the result to give you that transaction or not. So I felt that as if real estate was the calling for me when I can serve at a higher rate and give back more than what I've been given. You know what I mean? Because it's
100%.
not about me, it's what we can do for other people.
Yeah. Well, I just love what you said, man. Like, you made that point. I was going to ask you that, right? Like, were you just basically selling cars to a lot of real estate guys? Like, I listen to CPAs talk about the same thing all the time, right? I'm big on like learning about taxes is what led me to real estate. But a lot of them, they get out, they're green from college, and what they do is they have business owner clients that buy a ton of real estate, and then they're like, wait a minute, there's a there's kind of a common denominator among
Yep.
their clients that do well. So it's kind of
I
funny how
have
you had a similar path.
I have one client, and he's a very big builder in a very, very, very wealthy area. And it took a very long time to establish that relationship. But throughout that process of building the relationship, every time I would have, he's the type of guy where you have to go through his assistant before his assistant is his secretary. So you got to get through
Okay.
the secretary to get to the assistant. From the assistant, you get to him if you're lucky. So I played that role, playing the phone tag back and forth. And he was the type of client that would buy the 1% of the 1% model car in that brand that would cost anywhere from 300K to 500K. And it was year over year. He was my client year over year, coming in and buying a car and just keep that business going. It became such a strong relationship that I skipped over the secretary and assistant, and then it was just speaking to him directly.
Nice.
And over time, that relationship grew, and realizing that his financial wealth came from real estate. And I'm like, hold on a second. There's a calling here for me besides the financial aspect. There's a calling here for me that I'm getting, but now I just have to take action.
Yeah.
So, and here we are.
And obviously, like, being in the space you were in luxury, building relationships, right? It's kind of a super competitive market, I would imagine, right? Like, obviously the brand you work for, there's a lot of other brands out there, different things. It kind of goes along well actually with the New York City real estate market, right? Like you were talking about before we hopped on, like you like the competition a little bit, right? That kind of makes you want to get out of bed and do your thing, right? Is that kind of what keeps you in the real estate game there, would you say?
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, I like the competitiveness. Again, I find calm in chaos. I just think it's comes down to grinding and just, fighting. Get up, you get knocked down, get up, you get knocked down, get up. And I think the competitiveness is there just because of that's just New York. Like you could get
Right.
to a red light and the guy behind you slamming your horn because he wants to go through the red light. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you're going to compete against me to get in front of me just to get to the red light and go through the red light. Fine, go ahead. But there'll be repercussions to that. So
For sure. Well, that's a good segue though, right? So like, what is it like helping clients like that? Because there's everybody has that perception of New Yorkers. Trust me. I moved to Florida. Everybody thinks I grew up where you grew up just because I say I'm from the state of New York, right? So everybody thinks I'm an angry driver and the whole nine. So like, what's it like working with a New Yorker, right? Like, and what's the satisfaction you get from helping them buy or sell? Like, it's got to be just a great feeling.
So working with New Yorkers it's rough. I'm not gonna listen. It's either black or white. There's no gray area here, right? There's no like this, that, the other thing. No. It's either yes or no, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes with my personality because I don't like dilly-dallying. Like either A, you're gonna say yes, or B, you're gonna say no. And if you say no, we'll talk about it later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the hustle of it. It's this literally you get it, the city that never sleeps because I'll go to sleep at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and I'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'll be like, oh crap, that's what this has to be done on this deal, and I need to get this done. And then I'll just get up and I'll like 3 hours later, I'll get up and I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Because it's if we can grow and we align with people like us and we're growing around them, and then we attract other people to us and they're growing, that to me is like the ultimate, to help people, to serve, whether it's in our business or if it's helping people buy and sell. Now, when it comes down to customers and or clients that like to work with New York, it's different when you're not from New York, yes. And when you're in New York, you get so used to it. Right. But I'll give you a perfect example. This is just the type of person I am. And we were talking about this before we started the podcast is, I like the work, right? I'm not scared to get my hands dirty, knowing that I have my client's best interest at heart. So I was in the middle of helping a buyer that came across from one of my listings. We signed. She agreed to have me represent her as a buyer's agent. We looked at a couple of properties. She said, Jason, this is the one. It was Father's Day. I was supposed to go to a Father's Day party at my friend's house. My wife looked at me. She goes, are you coming to Amanda's? I said, I got work today. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I have one thing in my mind. And she's like, what's that? I said, to get this house for my clients. I said, so if I have to sacrifice 50% of Father's Day, I'm going to sacrifice it.
Right.
The listing agent was holding an open house from 12 to 4. 12:01, we were there. 4:01, we agreed upon a deal.
Nice.
From 12 to 4, I sat at the open house. We did the walkthrough with my buyers. They left. I said, go about your day. They yelled at me for doing this on Father's Day. I said,
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to get heat from my clients. I'm going to get heat from my wife. I'm going to get some heat from my daughter. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It's serving, right? So because on Sundays, it's realistically about going out there, house shopping, and all the good stuff. So from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I sat at that open house watching buyers come through the house. I was literally helping the agent answer questions, not disclosing who I was, but I text my buyers. I said, I'm still here at 3:30. She goes, I'm getting screamed at. Are you out of your mind? It's Father's Day. Go home. I said, no. And then she texted me back and I put her on Do Not Disturb. 3:59, the open house closes. 4:01, we're in negotiation with the listing agent and the seller. 4:10, we're still talking. 4:20, deal.
Nice.
Came to an agreement on price, inspection in 36 hours, contract within 5 to 7 business days.
Nice.
This was the house that they wanted. This was the house that felt right. So for me to sit there and give up a Father's Day, even though it's a Sunday and it's a Father's Day, I can also make that up on another day, which is the following day.
Yeah.
But what happened is that my buyers got the property that they wanted.
Nice.
And at the end of the day, that's what made them happy. If that made them happy, it made me happy to know that they got the house that they wanted.
Yeah, man.
So,
Well, that's what it's about, right? I don't know. It was so weird when I first started doing this type of thing because like I used to look at like I remember when I was in college, I'd look at jobs like, man, like this is great. Like I gotta work Saturday nights, but like I get Mondays off, right? So I could party on Sundays, like, or I could, go hang out with my buddies on Sundays, or I can do different. I don't really even look at like life like that anymore. Like 7 days, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I mean, I've literally I ate Thanksgiving and sat and did a pre-approval. So like, you know what I mean? It's just like it's like we talked about, it's like rewiring your brain, not to necessarily like the work, but also just not to like, I don't really even look at it like work sometimes. It's just part of kind
no,
of the gig, the kind of the deal.
you got to realize, right? So we own our own business, right?
Yeah.
We are our own business. And a lot of people don't understand that, being an owner operator is different than actually running your business. Me, I went from working, 40 to 60 hours a week to now working even longer, thinking that when I left that industry that I was actually going to be
Right.
lesser hours, but now it's even more hours. But the more hours that I give, the more rewarding it becomes in time, because
Right.
when you see the satisfaction of your clients, whether they're selling or buying a property, or even in some cases, even in rentals, like even letting the tenant know that they got the apartment, the smile on their face, and the weight is off their shoulders and they could breathe a little bit. That to me makes me smile, because you know
Interesting.
what? It's something that I said on the last podcast I was on. I was like, listen, as much as people want to say that, hard work works, everybody could say it, but do they mean it, and do they do the work?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like that
100%.
to me.
Well, usually, like the funny thing too is you can tell. Like once you get in a transaction, you can tell. Like you can easily tell the difference between a guy like that's got a competent agent representing them and somebody that's got a weaker agent that represents them, or somebody that in New York, somebody that has a weak attorney
Yep.
that represents them, right? Like that kills deals, man. Kills deals. But we can get into that a little bit more, I think, when we talk about the actual like specific markets and some of the types of deals, right? But like one thing I want to grab too before we hop into the market specifically, like your clients, because you work with luxury, you work with residential, you work with investors, right? I know you and I were talking about different
I
things
also,
to
yeah, and
invest
I
in.
also do some commercial too.
And obviously, we were talking about a commercial deal, and then you just
Yep.
told me you do apartment and rentals too, right? So like describe all of that, right? Like obviously, some people we know like they just want to do listings, right? Like or they just want to work buyers, or they just want to do. There's lenders that just do VA. Like there's a lot of different ways you can shape your business. It seems like you've got a plethora of
All of
options,
it. Yeah.
right? Like, how does that impact the way that you really present yourself to your clients, right? Like, do you present yourself as Jason Revere, luxury agent, right? How does that work
I
for you?
just so what I do is listen, one of my buddies, and he's all the way up in Canada, he said something on a podcast that really resonated with me. They asked him if he's directly a luxury agent, and he said, I'm a real estate agent. And the purpose is like, yes, we can solely focus on luxury markets. Like I have luxury clients all day long, but what it comes down to is helping as many people as you can, right? I don't want to be titled the person that only sells luxury real estate, right?
Right,
Because then what does that say when the luxury market quiets down,
right,
or when the luxury market is not as hot as it can be? You know what I mean? Yes, I
for
love
sure.
luxury. I love luxury real estate. It's beautiful. The houses, the details that go into the quality of the products, the whole nine. But then it comes into commercial. I mean, I love commercial because I'm a data-driven person. I like analytics.
Yeah,
Analytics speak, numbers speak, data speaks. Um, Residential, whether it's luxury, middle, whatever it is, there's a lot of emotion based in it because you have people selling their home, which was the largest investment that they've ever made, and taking the memories that they created in that house and bring them into another location where the memories that they created that they will no longer be able to step into a bedroom and say, oh my God, I did this here with my brother. We got in so much trouble. The reason why I go vastly into the different areas is because obviously business, right? I want my business to blow up. I want to have different areas of my business. So when one area is a little bit slower, I can then turn my focus to another area, right? But I think that the unity in all of that and serving all those clients is giving the same person that is looking to rent an apartment the same service that a luxury person's going to get. Because if you
Which is
could
tough to
that,
do, man. That's tough to do too.
It's absolutely, it's tough to do. It's not easy. It's
No.
not easy, but none of this is. And if it
No.
was, everybody do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just customer service, man. Like my mentor said that to me day one. Like my bartending background, right? Like that's my background. Luxury, a small local legion. Like I've done it all. And really it's just people. Like people just like to have a conversation and be treated with respect.
Yeah. Like I've spoken to people that are worth billions.
Yeah.
And the conversations that I have with them, you know, you could have conversations, but they're quick and meaningful conversations. They're not drawn out long conversations which have no depth and no purpose to it. But then there's the quick 5-minute conversations. So really it's being a people person, because we are in the people business. And I feel like everybody forgets that because they get so wrapped up in their statistics, that we are in the people business. This is servicing and helping people, the public. Like that
That's it. Yeah.
That right there says it all.
That's it, man. Like it's very much, I don't know, a lot of people overthink it, man. They really do. Like they really try to go in and they try to be like the selling sunset style, like, you know what I mean? And it's just, you don't have to do that. I respect people so much now. It's like a different thing. Like I bought a car since I started like this sales journey, and it's just a different thing because like I don't know. I'm not a shop you type of person. Like if you treat me with respect and you're a good dude and like you're sending me deals and stuff like that in terms of like, hey, you should come today, or hey, wait a week before you come pick this car up because you're going to get a better deal. Game on.
That's how I built my business. And that's how I built all of my business. It was based off of the relationships and not over the transactions. If you base your business off of transactions, you will never get it. And you will continue to chase the money.
Yep.
But when you base it off of a relationship, the money is the byproduct. And I love that byproduct.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the cool thing I think about what we do is sometimes if you look, like some people look at it like, you know, oh, greedy real estate person. I've never understood that because there's some of the greatest people that you'll meet, man. They're so happy. They're financially free. They're locally giving back to their communities. Like they're so driven too. Like they don't just like retire out and do nothing. Like they continue to do great things, man. Like it's just awesome.
And that's where, you know, it's the expansion, it's the growth mindset. It's about helping another person, because the minute you reach that financial freedom aspect of it, right, your mindset shifts and your mindset changes to a different plateau. And that plateau is really where, you know, money itself, right, is a tool. And that tool can bring out two sides to a person. It could bring out the bad side or the good side. And I like the good side better. Yeah. And that's what you would, to bounce off of what you just said. It's like real estate agents, brokers, professionals, loan officers, you know, even inspectors, guys that go to the house to do the inspection, have the same thing. They're willing to talk to you and teach you.
Yeah.
So you can grow and become better. I think that right there says a lot. You know what I mean? Like even when you punch your card and you pull your ticket and you're not doing any more transactions, you're still helping with your team if you've created a team, or you're going to events to network and talk, or sit on a stage and have a conversation with people and be in a panel. I think that is awesome, because what you're doing is you're taking your experience and you're just putting it out there and giving it to other people so they could absorb it and learn from it. That to me, like right there,
Oh, I
No
mean, the
brainer.
conversations I've been able to have just because I guess I'm prospecting, right? I mean, even our conversation at EXPCon, right? Like I met you, I shot with Robbie Baker last week, right? Robbie was talking, I had some great conversations with him, man. Like just meeting these different people in these different markets and hearing the different perspectives that people have. It's just great, man. It just makes you better, I think, as
Yeah.
well, you
And
know?
not only that, but then you're establishing the relationship aspect of it. You know what I mean?
For
So
sure. And technology's cool too, right? Because we can kind of do stuff like this and connect and, post content and help other people with conversations that we've had.
yeah.
So, kind of to get, I guess, more even specific, right? Let's break down, New York City a little bit, right? Let's do the market minute. And let's start with like the different boroughs, right? Like just give a quick overview of each one and some of the typical, things you see in
All right.
terms of
So
real estate.
yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with Staten Island, which is local and where I live.
Of course.
Staten Island is great because it's a cross between the city and New Jersey. So it's like literally you got to go through Brooklyn, come from Brooklyn, go through Staten Island to get to Jersey. So a lot of people that move from Brooklyn is on top of each other. I love Brooklyn. That's where I was born and raised. And Brooklyn will always have my heart, but now it's a little bit different.
Right.
Staten Island is a little bit more suburbia, where it's got the city vibes. You're close to everything, but yet you still have like that country feel that you don't want to fully commit to move into Jersey or up north or
Yeah.
out west. Brooklyn is, to me, Brooklyn is an expansion of Queens, right? So you got Queens and Brooklyn. They're just like, it's just a city. It's just a
Yeah.
city. Like if I went to your area and I went to your high population area, that's what New York is. That's
Yeah.
Brooklyn and Queens. And then if we go into the city is the city that never sleeps. It's all money. But that market has changed since obviously COVID. So that's a part of another conversation.
Absolutely.
As far as the markets, listen, right now with where we sit currently on December 17th, I feel there's a huge pent-up demand for buyers because there's still listings that are being withheld.
Okay.
Sellers are in the mix, and obviously the election and the uncertainty of where the country's going comes
Of
into
course.
play with that. Have we seen an uptick in applications since the election happened? Yes. But now we have our new fear mongering, which is the drones and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I think that right now with what's happening is creating uncertainty. And if we do have a rate drop, it's going to be busy and it's going to
Agreed.
explode. I just feel as if there's a dam waiting to crack open or lift it, and it's just going to be unrealistic. Because what's
Mhm.
happening is Brooklyn is moving into Staten Island. Staten Island is moving out of Staten Island. They're going to Jersey or south. Some are moving to the west, but the city, people are going more towards like Jersey City. They're now looking into Brooklyn. They're looking into Queens because it's all close to the city.
Yeah.
Um, all the markets have shifted into which way. It's still I'm not going to say neutral market. I'm going to say kind of up in the air market because everybody's
Okay.
going to say, oh, it's a buyer or a seller market.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the point of the podcast, right? Too is like, hey, real estate is local. Well, the coolest thing about that is people are like, oh, New York real estate. Well, where I grew up, where you're at, completely different
Night and
markets,
day.
completely different
Night and day.
factors, right? But even what you just said, right? Like, let's break those down. So, like Manhattan, right? Like, I think Manhattan, I think luxury, right? Obviously, we were talking before. You were, big. You're trying to move into, Southern Manhattan area, right? Like what does that market look like today? Is it is that a market you see buyer opportunity? Is it a more listing market? What do you think?
It's a give and take. It's on both sides.
Okay.
The city's still the city, but obviously with I'm not going to dive into the political aspect of it because
Yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah.
rabbit
No.
hole and a half. But that has to do
Yeah,
with
we don't have 3 hours.
no. But that political part of it has to do a lot with the city, right? So you could
Yeah.
go into one area of the city and it looks run down, and then you could go to a different area and it's clean and it's upscale and it's all there. That market is still active. It's just a different generation of who's buying, right?
Yeah.
Because you have Billionaires Row, which is like ridiculous. If you ever come up to New York, I'll take you there. I'll show you all the buildings. It's absolutely beautiful. And sometimes people just buy products in those buildings just to one up somebody.
Right.
I heard a story from one of my partners that a son bought a penthouse on one of the high up buildings, and then his father came in and bought one in the building a few blocks away, about 10 stories higher than him, just so he could look down on his son. But you see what I'm saying? So like the
Hey,
city
man.
market is always going to move no matter which way you
Yeah.
look at it. COVID pulled everybody away because everything was remote.
Right.
All the commercial flipped, right? And then we had an influx of individuals. So then the market had to change for that, where the
Right.
commercial buildings went into a resi building.
Right.
And what they're still trying to do is figure that part out. But it's always changing. So literally,
Yeah.
you could go to sleep today, and a new law will come out tomorrow, and everything will change. So is it still an active market all day long?
Right.
Are there buyers and sellers all day long? It just depends on what that person's goals are and what the next person's goals are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's kind of the idea too, right? Like, hey, each person is so different. So like you want to go find a Jason. So that way, like you have a gatekeeper. The last thing you want to do is be one type of person and buy in the wrong type of area. Like it's just never gonna work. Then you're gonna hate real estate. You're gonna hate everything involved. It's just not. I mean, even if you rent an apartment, I mean, even that is generally a nightmare to get out of. Like if you rent in the wrong spot. So it's definitely good to have a guide, right? But like in terms of that piece, like renting in the wrong spot and things like that, like of that those markets, Manhattan, Brooklyn, like you were talking about Brooklyn kind of being, overpopulated. Is there opportunity though, like for a guy to go in there and buy a commercial and turn it resi, or is that just kind of the political pieces?
No,
that
it's
do
believe
that?
it or not, in my old neighborhood in Bensonhurst, they just threw up a beautiful condo building. Ridiculous. They're having an open house this weekend. I might swing by it. But this is literally my old stomping ground where I grew up, and I would never expect a condo building holding, I think it's like 50 or 40 or 50 units, and to hit 12 stories or 11 stories in Bensonhurst says a lot, because that's only the highest I ever seen in height wise is 3 to 4 stories. And those are sometimes that's your brownstone. Sometimes there's an apartment building that only goes up 6 stories. But to see a luxury condo building go up on one of Pinnacle 18th Avenue, it says a lot that they're changing the dynamics of Brooklyn. So when you say, is it still open to growth? All day long. Brooklyn
Yeah.
is growing at such an enormous rate that even certain areas, like you got Williamsburg, you got Dumbo, you have all that area that is now basically pulling away from the city. And now people that used to go to the city now want to go into Brooklyn and hang out in Brooklyn, because Brooklyn now has cooler spots than Manhattan. What does that tell me? That tells me that now Brooklyn, for the years that I was in Brooklyn, I said Brooklyn's going to be the next hotspot. Brooklyn's going to be the next hotspot. And sure as hell, Brooklyn's the hotspot. I mean, listen, you just gotta. The other part is just browse around, and you'll see that there's new development happening all over Brooklyn. So to say Brooklyn is crowded, yes, but potential, absolutely.
Interesting. It's like, I don't know, like down here in Florida, right? Like I'm between Tampa and Orlando, and they're basically just going to merge together right through where I live in Lakeland, right? Like the cities are basic. Like COVID pushed so many people down here. There's still people moving here for political things and really just weather wise and other reasons.
It's funny. One of my clients that I relocated, that we're closing on that property tomorrow, relocated from Staten Island to Florida, right outside of Tampa.
And it happens, right? But it's crazy to see that like areas you wouldn't think that they could develop more, they're developing more. Like they're still figuring it out, man. Like they'll build them higher, they'll build it wider.
And that's it right there.
They don't care.
If you can't build them wide and long, you build them high.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. So I guess to kind of sum up that market, right? What's like we talked a little bit about Staten Island, right? Like, would you say that that's a hidden gem, or would you say that? Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, everybody's going to give you an intake on what Staten Island is. I could give you my personal intake on what Staten Island is. Is Staten Island a hidden gem? Absolutely. And the reason why is because if you want to live close to the city, or if you want to live close to Brooklyn, but you don't want to live on top of somebody or live so close to somebody, and you still want to have like that country feeling, like that suburbia feeling, Staten Island's the spot. Staten Island is known as the borough of parks. We have parks all over. Like literally, I'll take my dog for a walk and go to a new park every day of the week, and I'll find parks that I've never even knew. And I've been here over 20 years. Okay. Communities, there are a lot of communities. There's good and bad and indifferent. That's just part of every borough. Investment wise, yeah, there's plenty of investments. I see buildings going up left and right, whether it's commercial or residential. I don't think that to specifically say investment wise what's better than the next, it depends on what that individual's goals are and what they're looking to achieve, and then you start diving into what they want, what location and what borough would work best. But you know, the political part of that comes into play too. Yes, I think that, you know, if you really want to get to know Staten Island a little bit more, you're more than welcome to reach out to me.
Yeah.
So absolutely, by all means.
Well, that's what it's about, man. You gotta find a local expert. And like I said, that was the only reason I do this, is I just want to be able to let local people actually highlight areas for people. Everybody loves doom and gloom. Oh, real estate is gonna crash. Oh, it's good. Okay. If real estate crashed in every market all at once, we have a lot more problems than just the value of your house going down. I'm sorry, I hate to tell that to you, right? Like it's crazy, man. Like people literally had houses through the Great Depression. They've had it's been a need since mankind was created. So I love to be able to get like on the ground, actual real perspectives instead of media bull crap. Basically.
And it's funny, when we were talking about the political stuff, all of a sudden my phone said political call.
Hey, right? They're listening. Hey,
yeah,
they're listening, and that's what I like. That's what I like. Right? At least I've got one viewer. So, but well, listen. So let's jump in while we're talking that, and you're going to get some more phone calls after we talk this as well. Something that would have got us canceled at some point, but now we can talk about it. So, for the hot topic discussion today, as a northern New Yorker that went through 2 years of COVID and it was just awful, right? I moved to Florida afterwards. Now, things are fine now. New York's back to normal, all that, right? But man, a lot of people did what I did, right? A lot of people moved. And God. You know, at one point it was like the apocalypse for the New York City, especially the New York City real estate market. It was like, oh my God, the apocalypse. Everybody's leaving. Everybody's running, right? What do you see like now? Like, what do you see in terms of, I guess let's talk about your experience during COVID, how that was being in real estate down there. And then like what you see now, like the recovery, I guess.
So I'll make you laugh, and it brings up to like the whole New York thing. So I road bike. I like bicycling, right? And I go for heavy miles. So what I do is sometimes I'll take a ride into the city. Like I'll drive my car to the Staten Island ferry. I'll take the ferry into the city, and I'll bike ride in the city for a couple hours. I remember specifically this one day where it was midweek, and midweek it was, if you went into the city, especially on the west side, it was bustling, especially in the summer. Like it was packed. Like you have on the West Side Highway, you would have people walking because they have like bars and restaurants right on the water. And then you go up a little further, you go into Central Park, you go on the east side. It was always bustling. I remember this eerie day that I went there, and I think we were in the peak of COVID. And my wife tells me, she wasn't my wife, my fiance at the time, tells me, she goes, I don't think you should go into the city. I'm like, doesn't matter to me. I'm a Brooklyn boy. Like I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna. So I went.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm riding my bike, and it was such an eerie sight. Like there was barely anybody out.
Really?
Not a lot of cars. You know, I'm going down Fifth Avenue, and Fifth Avenue is just quiet. And I'm like, time goes on, and the flux happens, the shift from the Northeast to the Southeast.
Yep.
And that's when Big Brother's listening, is we all know another reason for that. But I've helped people in that shift relocate from Northeast to Southeast. And within those shifts and within helping those clients, I felt like I should have been a part of that, but there was a reason why I wasn't. And then if we turn the table around and we look at what happened today post COVID, I think COVID was what it was, and we all know the truth of it, right? But I also think it brought people's eyes open. New York will always be New York. That'll never change. The patterns of money will always change. One can relocate from the Northeast to go to the Southeast or even to the West.
Right.
New York itself took a huge hit on commercial real estate, and then it took a huge hit on residential real estate. But within that time, people were aware that the current residence that they were in was either A, too small, or B, too big. So the needs versus wants assessment came into play. Has the market recovered? Yes, but it's still in the process of recovering. And that's where it is. It's the commercial real estate market is still recovering. Like that part. I think we've hit our lowest point of when it comes down to pricing aspects. And I know that I have data shows that commercial real estate is going to come right back up at a fast pace. Same way with residential. Now it goes hand in hand. It all comes down to what rates are going to be, what the Fed says, or what, Big Brother says. That's what's the driving factor in all of it. There could be a quarter point rate drop, and then applications could flood and people come out of the woodworking. I think that there's a lot of tied up buyers in properties because of low rates that want to relocate. And I think that New York will thrive better than it did in the past. Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a lot more. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, I would agree. I mean, what would you say like right now is like, the largest thing fueling the comeback, right? Like, is it commercial exclusively, or are you seeing it kind of like loosen up and you're seeing like, so for example, one of the things I've noticed, just talking to a lot of the Floridians, right? They talk about the Keys and they talk about how, the Keys has been developed, right? There's really no land you could really develop anymore. But what's happening is where people were 100 millionaires, now they're billionaires. So the billionaires go buy, they tear down the 100 millionaire house and they build a billionaire house, right? And they're like basically re-gentrifying the Keys like one piece at a time. Yeah. Is that what you're seeing kind of happen in New York a little bit?
I'm going to say yes and no. And the reason why I say yes and no is because it's depends on the area of the market that you're in. What I will say is that, yes, there's a generational wealth transfer happening, and it's been happening for years, where there's old school money and new school money. New school money will come in and do exactly what you just said, where they'll demolish the old house to build a new house to make it more stand out or more modern, more contemporary. But then there's old money that wants to go in there and just buy and just, put people in there to rent and sit there. The market has shifted significantly. Will it shift again? Absolutely, because it's just never ending. It's not going to change. That's just the way the patterns show it, right? Do I think New York in the long haul will recover? Yes, I think I said that already.
Yeah.
But, it's just realistically where overdeveloped comes into play.
True.
There's certain areas in New York that are overdeveloped. And now what they're doing is they're looking at other areas in that to get on that same guideline, because there's still lack of inventory. There's still huge lack of inventory. There's, if you look at the statistics, there's still houses that are not filled. There's still people without houses. So
yeah, it's really crazy, the lack of inventory thing, like you said, because it's just like, I've been to New York a dozen times or so. You'd never think lack of inventory when you know what I mean? Like when you go down there, like it's the same thing. I was just, we were in Miami together, right? Like Miami, crazy, right? Everybody on top of everybody. They still have a housing shortage, man.
Yeah.
They still have a housing shortage. And like that really does drive price at the end of the day for most people. Man. Like obviously it's market specific, right? And commercials a little bit different, but it's all supply and demand, like you said.
Supply and demand all day.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that left New York during COVID that will never come back just because of the political pieces.
Oh yeah, you got to look at that. You got to look at taxes. You got to look at all that good stuff.
The tax situation for me would just make the most sense. It's just like, hey, in no income tax is the way to go, man.
Yep.
Hopefully we could get there as a country, and that would be a whole separate hot topic discussion you and I could have. I think you and I could go for a long time just talking about that, just by the look on your face. I love it. But so I guess let's shift it away from COVID, and because there's a couple of rapid fire questions that I jumped over because we were just going COVID. And I think you summed it up perfect though, man. Like there's always going to be opportunity. So anybody that's looking to come in to that market post COVID, you got to call Jason and get it. Have him help you navigate it, man. That's what you got to do, right? Obviously. So let's go rapid fire real quick, man. I got some good ones because these are some questions I had. So doing deals, I do deals in New York, all over the state of New York, right? All the different counties, they all act differently. And we've had a couple of different buyers we've pre-approved to buy down where you're at. And one of them wanted to buy a co-op, right? And I had no idea what the heck that was. So it was a whole process of trying to figure that out, doing some research. So could you explain what the difference between a condo and a co-op is for those of us uneducated?
No, you're good. You're not uneducated. It's just not being well informed. All right. So co-op. Yeah. So basically a co-op, you basically are partners in the building itself. Everything you do basically has to go through the board, and the board has to approve it. So the residence that you actually live in, you don't technically own. You own shares in the building.
Okay.
All right. So think of it this way. You and I go and we look at this we go look at this co-op, and you know what? We want to put an offer in. We get the agent accepts the offer, but now we have to put it to the board. The board has to approve it. The board could say yes or no. Like it's co-ops. Co-ops, it's like there's a judge, jury, and an executioner. They're great because if you don't want to physically own that, you want to own shares in it, it's great, right? But then there's good and bad and ugly, and that could be a whole different conversation. On a condo, you own what's inside the walls. Outside is on the HOA.
Yeah.
Basically, nice. There's only the condo board members who take care of everything, but those board members are naturally owners of the community. So, for example, I bought a condo with my wife for an investment. That's what you're seeing here. That's what these skylights are. That's our loft.
Nice.
I'm one of the board members on it. We always do what's right by the community. For me to do any type of work in it, I don't have to ask for authorization. I just, fix what I need to fix or upgrade what I want to upgrade. Condo, there's more leverage. I don't have to, basically just easier. There's an HOA, and there are common charges with a co-op because they're going to take care of the building and they're going to make you pay for it.
Right.
One of my buddies owns a co-op in a very upscale building on Staten Island, and he's always texting me how much he hates it because they just raised his common charges from $700 to $1,000.
Wow. And so there's really nothing he can do, right? He's got to
go. He's just got to take it on the chin and keep paying. So now instead of paying $700 for common charges, he's now paying $1,000 for common charges. And if the building's taxes go up, he's responsible for a certain percent of that tax.
Did you just say if the building's taxes go up in New York? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you mean when?
Yeah. Listen, I say if, and I'm saying if because it's 2024.
Yes.
But,
that's so funny, man. So, I guess another clip from that, right, would be what would be the benefit to somebody? What's a scenario where it's a benefit for somebody to be in a co-op?
Cost.
Okay.
Cost and size. Okay. Co-ops are less expensive than an actual house, whether it's attached or detached or semi-detached. Condos cost, same thing, price points. And the reason why my whole entire thing, right, is one of the reasons why we bought the condo as an investment and we've been living in it for 2 years is because I don't like taking care of a lawn. I don't like cutting grass. I don't like shoveling snow. I don't like any of that. What that does is that takes time away from me having experiences with my family or working on something else. So to me, less is more.
Yeah.
Well, condos, yeah, I like condos. I have one. Co-op, I don't think I'm the right fit for a co-op just
Yeah,
because
me
I'm
neither.
not, you know what I mean?
No.
It's you're buying shares in the building. I'm not really
If I want to buy shares, I'll go buy stock.
exactly well, crypto.
Right? Like I feel like that, man. Or like if I want equity, like I'll go buy a laundromat or a car wash. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I don't really want equity. And I guess maybe another follow-up fire while we're on that, because I don't really talk about co-ops a lot. And I'm sure it's not really a huge deal, but like what would be the benefit if I owned a building to have a co-op?
What
Right?
would
If
be
I
the
own the
benefit?
building, then
Then yeah, then because
co-op's
now
probably
you're
great, right?
if you're the owner, if you're the owner of it, right? It's great right there
Right.
because then you're just cash flowing, you're creating money.
Interesting.
But it's just I have conversations about co-ops and condos often, and I just keep it very simple because if I
Yeah.
dive deep into it, you're talking, board packages on a co-op. You're talking this, that, the other thing. Like
Yeah.
it's just crazy. Like my buddy, he's got his co-op and he uses it as a rental where he's always asking me advice every year when he gets a new tenant. How much should I raise the rent? How much should I raise the rent? And I'm like, dude, like you can't go that high. You could go an extra 100, 200. He goes, but bro, even he tells me, he goes, if I raise it $100 to $200, I'm still in the red every month. I'm like, so then maybe it's time to exit.
Yeah. Yikes, man. Yikes. Yeah, you can't headbutt the math, I guess I like to
No,
say. Like
that's
you
what it
can't.
is. It's the analytics. It's the
Yeah,
data. It's sitting down there
you
and
can't.
doing the
You
numbers.
can't.
Yep.
Okay. So pivoting off that, right? Like what's the one piece of advice that you would give to, well, I'm 27 now, right? I think the average age just went up to like 38, but like what would you give to a first time buyer in New York City? Like what's the best piece of advice?
I when you sent me over the email and I started analyzing this one question, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to give value here because that's going to be the biggest part because I hope a lot of first-time home buyers hear this. And if you're looking in Staten Island, Brooklyn, or Manhattan, please reach out. I think just being well educated. I think knowing what a first-time home buyer, their intentions are, what their goals are, but also financially what they can do. Because a first-time home buyer could say, I want $1 million house, but financially they can't afford it, right? But they if they qualify for a grant or a program, not saying that $1 million house is going to qualify them, but if they qualify for a certain program, just being informed. And then it also comes down to having that hard conversation where they feel like they want to buy a house, but they don't want the headache of a house. Then it brings in the options of other availabilities. As
Right.
a first time home buyer, I will say this, please get educated, speak with a local expert, and interview somebody who's going to work for you with your best intentions and your goals aligned with them.
Yeah.
Because if you're going in to find a new home as a first-time home buyer and you get an agent on the phone that all they care about is the transaction, that's not the right fit for you. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'm working with a first-time home buyer currently. I have
Mhm.
another first-time home buyer. I had a buyer consultation last week, again this week, and I reiterate the same thing to these clients. If I don't answer the questions the way you would like to hear it and or come close to what answer you're expecting, let's have a different type of conversation. Let's go through one or two interviews to make sure that we are the right fit for each other. And the reason why is because, Colin, you're a first-time home buyer. Jason, me, I'm the realtor. I need to know what's important to you, your needs and wants assessment, right? I need to know what your goals are. And then from there, I can say, okay, so maybe this would work. What's your feedback? And it's just openly talking about it because it's a first-time home buyer. It's a first-time purchase of a home.
Right.
It's one of the biggest investments that they'll do starting off their life. Like,
Yeah.
I think you just need to be well educated, well informed, and align yourself with somebody who you could see working for you.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and get pre-approved. Call me if you need it.
Yeah, call Colin, get him pre-approved. Once you get the
Yeah.
pre-approval with Colin, come to me
But
and let's
the joke is, you know, it is always the first thing, right? And it's fun, but it's so true. Like, what are you doing going out there? You don't go to the grocery store without a budget, right? If you got $200 in your pocket in cash and you're going to get groceries, you know you can only spend $200 on groceries, right? Like, it's not like, oh man, I spent 400 out of nowhere. Like, now I'm upset at the grocery clerk. Like, what? Like, no,
no,
get your stuff
I
right.
and I'll give you a perfect example. I literally I went to a first time home buyer. This happened last year. I took my clients out to show a property. The property was a little bit above their budget. They fell in love with it, obviously, because it checked all the boxes. But when we went outside and we went to talk it over with him and his wife, we started talking about certain things. And I asked them, I said, can you and will you be able to pull this off? They're like, yes. I said, okay, now that you know you can do this, let's look at the other side of it, which is your monthly and daily expenses. Are they going to be affected by this? They're like, yes. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how high? He goes, about 8. I said, so then this is not the property for you. And we keep looking. The wife turns around and goes, but Jason, we love it. We want to put an offer in. I turned to the wife. I said, listen, I said, I'll put an offer in, but let's sit down and let's talk about this again the same way we just did in a few hours, because I know what you're going to tell me is that, you know what, we're not going to do it. We had that conversation again right before they got into that car. 4 hours later, they call me and the wife said, you were right. It's not, and to me, it's not about right. It's not about being right.
No,
It's
no.
about setting expectations and knowing that, you know, as a first-time home buyer, this is what you expect. You know what I mean? You got to realize that not everything comes the glitz and glamour on a pedestal. You know, I just think that a first-time home buyer, yes, of course, get a pre-approval from Colin right there.
Mhm.
Come to New York, come see me.
Yeah, right. You know,
And
I mean,
just, you know,
that's what it is though, right? It's just like, and the other thing I would say too, like if you would ask me that question, now that you and I have had a good conversation back and forth, I feel like find somebody that's going to tell you something you don't want to hear.
that's exactly it. It's the hard conversations. If you speak to an agent that's, you know, not ready to have those conversations, you need to
Yeah.
find somebody that's willing to have those hard conversations.
Yeah. Or if
Because
they're not asking you those, right? Like there are some
yeah,
agents that just won't ask a hard question because it just makes them kind of, you know,
it kind
queasy.
of, yeah, exactly. It makes it, you know, it's like, do I ask this question and then all of a sudden my buyer walks away from me and goes to work with another agent? Is that the
Right.
worst thing that's going to happen? Come on, let's face facts. It happens often.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. Well, real quick too, just one last quick jab at you. What's one common mistake you see people who are like out of state investors trying to buy in New York City? Like, what's one mistake you've seen that they've made?
Let's just put it like this: out of state investors are staying out of state.
Yeah. Hmm. That's funny.
I that's all I got to say.
Yeah. No, we'll leave that one there, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's too funny. So, all right. What if I'm kind of wrap things up? You know, we're approaching an hour, and I really appreciate your time. So I don't want to take too much more of it, man. Right? But like, what's like a piece of advice you could give? My girlfriend, she's a new realtor, right? But there's a lot of other people who are new realtors, new lenders, new investors, right? Like new business owners in general. Like, what's a good piece of advice to someone in those shoes, man?
Oh man, this is good. This is good. So, a steady a steady buck is better than a quick dime.
I like that. I like that. We should sell T-shirts.
That's actually, you want to know something? Let's do it.
Let's do it. That's that.
But realistically, a steady buck is better than a quick dime. You know, or you
So
can look at
true.
it this way: a steady nickel is better than a quick dime, because it's the instant gratification. What I would say to somebody that's new to the business, whether it's a loan officer or an agent, um, it's not easy. Put your helmet on and just ready to take the shots. Get up and do it again the next day. Keep taking the swings. because it's just one conversation. It's just one podcast. It's just one opening the door as a courtesy to somebody else that could change the forecast of your business and or your life. Build a thick skin, and just focus on what you want to focus on, and always remember your why, right? And so this is for the new agents. This ain't easy. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And for the ones that have exited, I'm sorry to see you go, but I'm happy I'm staying.
Yeah, man. Nice. So true. It's a competitive contact sport, man. It really is.
It's
But
sales. That's sales. That's sales. No matter which way you look at it, that's sales. It's a competitive sport.
this is the best, I think. I think this is the best avenue of business to weed out people with scarcity mindsets, like really easily. The people that are really scarce upstairs, like worried about me. I gotta, I gotta worry about me. They get out of the business pretty quick, man.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And again, I'm going to reiterate one last thing. Agents, loan officers, anybody who's in a business to serve, you're in the people business. You're not in the transaction business. You're in the people business.
Absolutely.
Just leave it at that. It's a people business. It's doing right.
Yeah, man. Well, that's amazing, dude. Well, like I said, thank you so much for taking an hour with me, man. I really appreciate it. What's like do you have a book or a podcast recommendation that you could give out to anybody that's looking to learn more?
I'm a big podcaster. I listen to a lot of them. Big into motivation. So I would say Ed Milet. Ed Milet was a big help. He got me through some dark times in my life through his podcast, which was pretty awesome. And I'm not afraid to admit to it, because you know what? Sometimes that's what people need to hear that. As far as it goes real estate wise, obviously, I'm just all ears, but with selective information, you know what I mean? Because too much information is a lot of noise.
Of course.
It's just a lot of podcasts I listen to are more mental and physical than anything else, because that'll build your confidence and build your backbone to service in a way that you can service.
Absolutely, man. No, I love that. Ed Milet's the man. I love that.
Yeah.
That recommendation. And then where can everybody find you, man? I believe it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn that you got.
Yeah, I got Facebook. I got them all. I got all the social media platforms. On Instagram, it's at real_Jason_Revere. On Facebook, it's Jason Revere. On LinkedIn, it's Jason Revere. Everything is pretty much related and everything correlates with each other. So as long as you find me at real_Jason_Revere on Instagram, you could get me there. All my contact info is there. By all means, please reach out.
Yeah, and it'll be down in the description as well. I'll have a link to your Popple card, all the social medias, all that good stuff, man. Well, Jason Revere, that was an episode, man. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Colin. It was my pleasure, and thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Take care.
Take care.